Good morning, everyone. This is Commissioner Scar. Today is Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025, and we'll call this meeting to order at 8 a.m. As a reminder, our call-in number is 1-971-254-3149. Conference ID 866-914-607#. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute their phone. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute yourself when called to speak. Again, pressing *6. It's very important for all others to remain muted. Thank you. All right, well, welcome everyone. I hope everyone had a wonderful Labor Day weekend, and we are all back and starting September, and just feels like a new chapter in the year. So thank you for joining us this morning. We will start with our Board of Commissioners roll call. I believe that Commissioner Bell is unable to join us, but I think Commissioner Fournier is with us. So good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Commissioner, and everybody else.
Wonderful. Welcome. Okay, we will start as we always do with Adventist Health Tillamook. Good morning, Eric.
Hey, good morning, Commissioner. We have 11 patients in the hospital today, 2 surgery cases. Our ambulance crews did 12 911 transports yesterday, 1 transfer, no transports home. So a busy day for them. Let's see, what do I have to tell you? Surgery is on schedule for the construction. I was in there twice last week with different groups looking at the construction project. The new surgery suites will be ready for us in March of next year. We'll start doing cases in the new surgery suites, and then the rest of the department gets remodeled, which should conclude in about October of 26. So it's nice to see that that is on target for completion on time. Today is a new day here at Adventist Health Tillamook. Gina Seifert, who was one of our executives, retired yesterday, was her final day. She worked for Adventist Health Tillamook for 31 years in a number of roles, and decided retirement was the next step. So new chapter for her as well. So if you know Gina, please don't hesitate to tell her congratulations and thank her for 31 years of amazing work here in Tillamook. She was a nurse for over 40, with 31 being here in Tillamook. So with that, unless you've got questions for me, that's all I've got for you today.
Thank you, Eric. Any questions for Eric this morning? Okay, not hearing any. We will keep moving. We have our Coastal Caucus, and I know that I saw Representative Javity with us this morning. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning, Commissioner. Glad to be here. Let's see. I am back from Salem. We just finished up the House portion of the special session that the governor called. It started on Friday, and it was a busy weekend. We were there to discuss the transportation bill that we talked about for a bit last week, or maybe it was the week before. Boy, it's all blended together. But yesterday we had the vote. The vote passed 36-12, and that was the first step. Now it's headed to the Senate. The Senate should be. They met for yesterday, and so when we're in Salem, like in other branches or levels of government, every bill has to be read 3 times in each chamber, and so the House read it for the first time on Friday last week at 8 o'clock at night. Then we didn't meet Saturday, read it again Sunday, and then we read it for the 3rd time yesterday. And after that 3rd reading is when the members get to debate and then vote. And so that's what the House was up to this weekend. Lots of last-minute bargaining deals. So we did get some amendments added to the bill as a result of those negotiations. And then and so that version of the bill passed yesterday, and I'll go over those details in a second, but it is now headed to the Senate. They first read it yesterday. Today will be the 2nd reading. Those are usually pretty quick meetings, usually maybe 20 to 30 minutes, depending on what needs to be said. And then tomorrow will be the 3rd reading of that Senate bill. And if it passes, then it will become the law. And that, and so then we'll jump into what that is. So the version of the bill that passed the House and is up for debate in the Senate has really 5 parts to it. The first part is what everybody's talking about, and that's a gas tax increase of 6 cents per gallon at the pump. that will affect just gasoline, and it will so 6 cents per gallon. The average user in Oregon drives about 12,000 miles a year and gets about 25 miles to the gallon. So that adds up to about $2.50 a month is what we'll expect the impact to be on our pocketbooks if we're an average driver getting average gas mileage. Now, some people get better gas mileage than that or drive less miles. They'll see those numbers lower, could be down around $1.50 a month increase. And then if you get worse gas mileage, if you've got a older vehicle or one that's got a bigger engine, or you drive a lot more, you could see that go up. It could be $3, $4, $5 a month. So a burden everybody will feel that uses the roads. That's the first part of it. The second part is the road usage charge. So our electric vehicles in Oregon don't pay by the mile, right? And so what the roads are funded by all the money that gets put into the bucket for the state highway fund, and that money comes from the gas tax predominantly. Some money also comes from registration fees and that you pay at the DMV, and then some of the money comes from the weight and mile tax that big trucks, the ones carrying logs and milk and gasoline and stuff carry. But but electric vehicles have been able to get around that, with the exception of paying a slightly higher fee at the DMV, which didn't really pencil out to be on par with gasoline engines that are getting the average utilization out of the roads. And so starting in 2027, due to how long it's going to take to implement the record-keeping system that will keep track of this, EV vehicles will pay 2.3 cents per mile they drive. And so they'll now be contributing, and if you do the math on that, they'll actually be paying just slightly more than gas users who drive the average amount at 25 miles per gallon and 12,000 miles. So that'll be going into effect. In the meantime, there will be slightly higher registration fees for EV vehicles to help make up the difference while we're waiting for that system to get implemented. The third part is the weight and mile tax system. Now that's a complicated way that truckers around Oregon keep track of how much damage they're doing to the road, and then they have to pay a tax. It's not really that they're doing damage like the kind that you could go out and see after a truck drives by, but just they're heavier, they do more wear and tear on the roads, cause more stress on the bridges. And so the way that Oregon set this up, and it's kind of unique in the United States, is that they calculate how much you're carrying, how much your truck weighs, and how far you're driving that load, and then you have to pay a tax. The record-keeping system is brutal. It costs trucking companies and businesses that use trucks lots of money to figure out even how to do it and keep track of it. Some don't because it's so complicated, and so they don't pay into that pot. And the Trucking Association has for decades been asking us the legislature to please fix it because they're paying far more in than the damage and the wear and tear that they're causing. In fact, 32% more. And so it was really an unfair burden for our truckers. The good news is that part of this bill brings that down. So instead of being 85 different tax rates for a trucker to keep track of, it's going to be down to 10, stratified by how much they weigh. So that's a huge relief for truckers. It will also see the rates they pay decrease because we have to get that ratio that they pay. Instead of being 32%, they should be paying close to 1-to-1 for the damage they cause on the road and the expenses that we put into the road account. And so that'll be fixed. Now, there was a controversial part about this section of the bill, even though the good it was doing, because the Oregon Constitution says, hey, you know what? If you're a trucker, you don't have to pay more than the damage you do to the road. And if you're a car, same for you. Right? So we had these two categories that both had to be close to 1-to-1, meaning if cars put in $1 billion into the state highway fund, then they had to the damage they did need to be close to $1 billion. That's a kind of a plain Jane way of saying it's a little more complicated. The bottom line is they weren't, and the legislature is supposed to fix it every session. They're supposed to reallocate those costs, bring down those rates, and when they don't, they violated the Constitution. So this piece of legislation said, you know what? So if the legislature fails to act, then the Department of Administrative Services has to step in and make it right, basically improve it for the truckers and improve it for the cars. So they're allowed to lower the rates to make it so that trucks aren't overpaying, for example. They can't raise the rates. So if you're a car, you can't just have your rates at the gas pump go up because of the Department of Administrative Services. So that's a way to keep things in balance or get them back to balance when the legislature fails to act for political reasons. And the fourth part of this bill that people will notice is in their paychecks. Only if you get a paycheck. So if you're not working, if you're retired, you get Social Security. This doesn't directly apply to you, but if you're working at a job right now, if you get your pay stub, there's a small line at the bottom of the pay stub. It's a transit payroll tax. Now it's not the normal payroll taxes that we pay, which are a lot bigger. This has been at this point 0.1%. And to put that into perspective, if you work 40 hours a week and you're making $25 an hour, then you would pay $1 a week towards the transit fund, and that money goes to funding our public transportation in rural communities as well as over in Willamette. But the part that's important for Tillamook County and Clatsop County is that money then comes back and helps pay for bus routes to get our most vulnerable citizens and residents to the places they need to go. And so that rate's increasing. So instead of being $1 for every $1,000 you earn, which is it's going to be $2. So it did double and went from $1 to $2, and so that will be coming out of people's paychecks. Now, if you work less than 40 hours a week or make less than $25 an hour, that'll be less than $1 a week. If you make more, it'll be more. The average Oregonian in Oregon makes about $60,000. So on average, they're paying about $6 a month right now, or $60 a year, and or $72 a year. Sorry, get my math right. And they'll see that increase, right? It's going to double if they're making about $62,000 a year. And then the fifth part of the bill are the accountability measures. So one of the things that I heard Oregonians say, well, the first thing I heard them say was, hey, we don't like these taxes. It's going to make everything more expensive. And they're right. The gas bill, like I said, is going to go up a couple of dollars a month. And EV vehicles are going to have to pay a little bit more per month for the miles they drive. And all the other taxes I just talked about, including the payroll tax. But the second thing that they were really upset about is they just don't trust the government. They don't trust ODOT. They're still sitting in the same traffic jams they sat in 8 years ago. They're still driving over those same potholes, and Highway 6 is still sliding into the abyss. Bridges are still failing all throughout the county. We had blown out culverts last year. We had the road down to PC falling into the ocean. We've got a bridge up past Manzanita on the way to Cannon Beach was falling apart. I mean, things just look like they're not going well, and it's easy to think, well, ODOT's not keeping up. And the honest truth is they're not keeping up, and it's a mixture of reasons why. And I think the rest of this phone call could be about all the things that are causing that. But what is missing from the whole thing and why people are so frustrated is they're not seeing progress, and they want to, and they measure trust in projects getting done and roads being plowed, and the truth is that our ODOT workers or county workers who are up at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night clearing rock slides are working their tails off, and the state's just failed to invest in them. It's been since 2016 since we last raised any revenue for maintenance, any significant amount. And so counties, cities, and the state have been asking more and more of their ODOT employees, and it's been unfair. And so the accountability portion of this bill will demand audits from outside the agency to make sure that things are being done well, or by the book and the way they should be. It'll have more project oversight, especially on projects that are more than $250 million. And it gives the governor the authority now to fire the head of the Oregon Department of Transportation, so she can't continue to because right now she can't fire the department head. It has to be done by a third-party group called the Oregon Transportation Commission, of which she does appoint members, but still she can't directly fire. And that's presented what the legislature thinks are some serious accountability concerns. And so those 5 areas together are the package that passed out of the House yesterday and is now in front of the Senate. And so it was big, hairy discussion. One of the toughest votes I've taken, and for me, it boiled down to just how important the roads are in Tillamook County. I mean, we're a lot different than the rest of and Clatsop County, but we're a lot different than the rest of the state. I mean, anyone who's lived here knows when the winter comes, we're going to get several storms. We're going to have downed trees. We're going to have rock slides. We're going to have floods. And it's really the hard work of our county works department and our ODOT employees that keep those roads open for us so that we can get where we need to go. And when you think about it, there's some parts of our county where, like we just heard from, Eric about the hospital, but there are some parts of our county where if the road is closed, people are cut off from access to healthcare in the moment they may need it the most. People, when we have those bad ice storms and the snow and it can't get plowed and we have roads sliding off and people can't get to work, it's not the $2.80 a month that they're going to miss. I'll be upset about it. It's the day worth of wages or maybe the 2 or 3 days of wages they're going to miss now because they couldn't make it to work, and businesses will lose productivity and kids can't get to school and parents can't reach their kids. And there's a million reasons why on the coast with our limited alternative routes and how spread out we are, that this really was the, for me, it came down to, how important our roads are and that there was no real other alternative solution that would have fixed this problem. There was some, and I'll end on this as far as transportation goes. There was an alternative plan that would have moved money around. The Republicans brought that plan to the table, and to keep it, short and sweet on how this was going to work, there are 3 buckets of money that we're looking at, and one of them is maintenance, and it's not all the way full as it should be. And then there's a second bucket that has major road repairs, and there's money in that bucket, but that's the money that we use to pay for Highway 6. That's the money they just use to fix Highway 26. That's the money that goes to fixing bridges and blowing out culverts, et cetera. And then there's a third bucket that goes to public transportation. And the Republicans' plan was to take all the money that was left out of in the major road repairs, like the one that would fix the road in PC or the bridge that fell down up on Highway 101 to Highway 6, and they were just going to put it into the maintenance bucket. So we would have had no money in that bucket for any of the major road repairs we have in the county or in the state. And then that still wasn't enough. So then they wanted to take some money from DEI and CPP, and not all of it, but some of it, and put that in the maintenance bucket. And it still wasn't enough. We were still short. And so then the third option was just take all the money out of the public transportation fund, about $500 million, and put that into the bucket. And that would have been enough. But that would have also meant that there would have been significant cuts to public transportation throughout the state, especially on the coast. And when I called and talked with the transportation districts, they weren't in a position where they could cut more. They already need more drivers. They need more routes. And we just had that dialysis center reopen in Tillamook, and it was because of the buses that people were able to even get to that treatment. And so while most people may not use Tillamook Wave or buses up in Clatsop, the people who do really depend on it. And so for me, at the end of the day, the Republican plan, which was headed in the right direction, just it didn't have enough of the right pieces. And ultimately, even if we had been able to pass the Republican plan, it would have been good for about 2 years, and then we would have been back right where we are now with the discussion about how to fund ongoing costs, how to fill the pot of major road repairs again, et cetera. And we would have had to raise taxes then. So it just felt like this was the approach that was going to make sure we had money for big road repairs, kept public transportation open and running, and filled the maintenance, the hole in the maintenance. And it was going to cost the average Oregonian, $2 to $10 a month on average, depending on how much they drive and where they drive and what kind of car they have. And so I felt like it's still a burden, and I felt like as far as the cost goes, and I didn't like that. And I felt like it didn't really fully address the trust issue, but the consequences of doing nothing for the winter just seemed too high. And so I voted yes to support that bill and to get it across the House floor and over to the Senate where they'll discuss it. And so that is the transportation bill. And I spent probably all my time talking about that. But if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer them, or questions about any other things, I will answer them. Then next week, I'll have some other updates on some other issues if you'd like.
Thank you, Representative. Appreciate that very thorough explanation. I know this has been It's been a tough issue, and I know people all over the state are concerned about it, and people in Tillamook County as well. And we appreciate your willingness to dive in to look at that issue through the eyes of the coast, and recognizing that at some point the state level sometimes becomes simply partisan politics. And just appreciate your willingness to look at it through the eyes of your constituency and the needs that we have on the coast. So thank you for that. Other questions or comments for the representative around the transportation bill? Okay, not hear anything from my fellow commissioner. Any other topics you did want to touch on today? Are you ready to take a breather?
Commissioner Scar, Commissioner
Yes.
Scar, this is Mayor Welch from Bay City. I just
Yes.
want to thank Representative Javity for his work in Salem and supporting the transportation bill. It's really important to the coast. So thank you, Representative Javity.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Mayor.
Thank
We appreciate it.
you for saying that. Yeah. I mean, I want to say I know this is frustrating for a large part of the community. I know I read the emails, the Facebook comments. People have called me at all hours of the night. They've stopped me in parking lots, and I know people were worried about this. I think there's some real legitimacy to their frustration, their sense of how much it's going to cost. But I've also heard from a lot of people who, desperately want to make sure the roads are repaired and they're open and available, and they're worried about, a certain, maybe their road or the road that their family drives on. Or I've heard from businesses who really hope that the roads they need to get their products to market stay open. And so it was a mixed bag for sure. And so I don't want people to think I'm tone deaf to that. I did hear everybody, and I felt like it was really, when I weighed all the pros and the cons, that the best option was to pass this bill. So but I didn't do it. I know some people think that we're not listening and that we don't care what the results are, or the impacts are, but we deeply care on both sides of the aisle. And it was just a matter of sometimes where politics meets the real world and making sure we get a solution that works. Other issues, though, I did introduce a bill with a colleague this week regarding law enforcement. I know that Commissioner Fournier's reached out to me about it. This bill it's not really a bill. It would be an amendment that would go to the people of Oregon to amend the Constitution. And it's around making sure that law enforcement officers are clearly identified and so that people can't be taken advantage of by people who aren't members of the law enforcement, but also just to make sure that when the law enforcement does come knocking on your door, you know who it is, and if they do arrest you, that it's somebody that that can be held accountable, as well as that you can rest assured is a member of the government and not somebody else. And so that is a discussion point that we're starting at, and there's a lot of people in the community that are concerned about people being just grabbed off the streets, and people's rights being denied, and due process. And there's a broader conversation going on about this. I would say that in Oregon, this is, our law enforcement officers do wear the proper, at the state level and the county and the city level, wear the proper identification and gear and do identify themselves. There are exceptions for members of the SWAT team, for undercover, for all sorts of reasons why police work sometimes needs to be not identifiable. But this does bring some clarity to when law enforcement officers will be able to go unidentified and when they'll have to be. And so that's the discussion I'm looking to have, and to make sure that we're protecting the freedoms of and liberties of individuals, but also to keep our law enforcement safe as well. Nobody wants to put them more at risk, and so we'll be having those conversations going forward, and as we get closer and closer to the next session. So just one other thing that I was working on, and there's some others coming. We'll be bringing back transient lodging tax bill to get that reallocation done in short session. But that, I think for now, I think I've maybe dumped so much onto your guys' laps and the community's laps right now that I'll give everyone some time to kind of process that and ask questions and reach out. Next week I'll come back with some more details.
Wonderful. Thank you. We appreciate it. We appreciate you being here this morning to talk about the issues. And I know, as always, you encourage people to reach out to you if they have individual concerns. So we will look forward to hearing from you again next week.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you later.
Thank
Bye.
you. Absolutely. Okay. Moving along, I do not have, I don't believe Senator Weber this morning based on phone numbers, so we'll keep right on trucking. I also do not have the community health centers today. They have taken today off, and so we'll move right on to the Nehalem Bay Health Center and Pharmacy. Gail Nelson, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please do go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The Nehalem Bay Health Center and Pharmacy is going to be dedicating the new health center October 4th at 1 o'clock along with the health district. So please plan to attend if you're available, enjoy refreshments, and tour the new facility. Otherwise, we are here to serve you in Wheeler. If you would like an appointment with one of our providers, don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-368-5182 for more information. And thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you joining us this morning and looking forward to that dedication. That's a fabulous building.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Moving forward, Tillamook Family Counseling Center, Frank Hanna-Williams. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Frank Hanna-Williams, Director, Tillamook Family Counseling Center, Behavioral Health Services for Tillamook County residents. Not too much to share after the holiday here. We are open, and if you have questions or are interested in finding out about our services or making an appointment, please give us a call at 503-842-8201, or you can call on our 1-800 line, which is 1-800-962-2851. And that is my update, and I would take any questions if anyone has any.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions for Frank? All right, not hearing any. Thank you for joining us. And we
Sure.
will continue. Yeah, continue through our list. And it is the first Tuesday of the month, and we have the Sheriff's Office joining us this morning. I see Sheriff Brown. Good morning.
Good morning. Can I ask if I could do my report after a couple more people? I'm trying
You
to
bet.
get the rest of my stats collected. Something came up real quick. So if you can give me about 5 or 10 more minutes, I would appreciate that.
Absolutely. Tell you what I'll do. I will circle back to you before we start the cities and see if that's enough time.
Perfect. Thank you.
You betcha. Okay, so with that, we'll jump ahead. I know that Randy from Emergency Management was a maybe this morning, and I do not see him. So we'll go ahead and go to Bill Jablonski with the Oregon Department of Transportation. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Commissioner Scar. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Hey, I first of all, I just want to thank Representative Javidi for his comprehensive summary. I know as an ODOT employee, it was pretty assuring to hear the progress that was made over the weekend. So, of course, here at the staff level, we're monitoring and seeing, what happens with the rest of the bill through the Senate as well too, and our directors keeping all of our statewide staff folks up to date, pending our layoffs scheduled for September 15th. So we're certainly watching those as well too. So updates for my projects. As the area manager, I mainly deal with projects that are federally funded. So for example, the roadside barrier project on Oregon 6, which I have been talking about over the last year and a half or so, that's been in design development, is going to bid here on the 18th of September. And that's a $10 million project, of which the feds pay roughly 90% of that, and we have state dollar matches for that. So roughly $1 million out of state funds pays for a $10 million project, which upgrades those barriers between Banks and the city of Tillamook on both sides of the highway. So all the bridge rail ends, all the runs of guardrail that you see that get broken down when the trees fall, and you see those divots on the guardrail. The guardrail heights tend to be adjusted as standards change. So that project itself is going to bid here, in 2 weeks in September, and that'll go through the late spring of 26. So we'll have contractors out there in Oregon 6 at various times doing those guardrail upgrade repairs to that section. So I just want to distinguish between the funding that my projects deliver versus what our district side with Mark Buffington and the district, who is all state funded for those gas taxes and registration fees, et cetera, that his group actually has to work with. So in a way, we deliver quite a bit of project for low money compared to if you're adding federal dollars to it. So it's a bargain to the Oregonians to get these kind of projects funded by the federal government. Also I have several other projects on Oregon 6, which is my high priority here for Tillamook County. And I've been coming here for almost 2 years and just updating on the status of those. My next one is Wilson River Loop Road, the repair there on the northeast corner. When you're coming westbound on Oregon 6, that one's still going strong. It's in design. These things do take time. There's right-of-way utility issues, permitting things that just take time that we have with federal oversight on these projects. So that was scheduled to go to bid here also in early part of 26 and be under construction for the fall of 26. Looking forward to that one as well too. And on the heels of our roadside barrier project in Oregon 6, we have a paving project coming in next summer in 26 from mile point 4.4 to 9. That's another $10 million in paving through that section there for both sides of the highway. There's an opportunity to make a little bit of safety improvements for that paving area too. There's some profiles that can be adjusted a little bit just to get a smoother ride and a little more safely as far as the handling of your vehicles and larger trucks that travel between the valley and the coast. On the maintenance side, I want to just pass along, we typically have a winter operations meeting. Talking to Mark Buffington this morning, it's going to be sometime in October. I don't have a day or a location. Typically, it's in the city of Astoria. We find a venue and invite everyone from Washington County, Clatsop, Columbia, and Tillamook County to participate. We kind of go over what our plan of attack is for the winter months, working with our local partners, our county folks, and also what state routes, what kind of treatment we'll be expecting to see. And we have a little bit of a crystal ball from the National Weather Service shows up, and they let us know, kind of what to expect, La Nina, El Nino type events that we might see at the coast, which impacts a lot of us, or mainly all of us when we drive here in the coast in the winter. Out in Oregon 22 at Alder Creek, you're going to see Tillamook crews cleaning out this large culvert out there that needs annual maintenance. You're seeing the crews out there on Highway 22, so thank you for driving by those folks in a cautious manner. Appreciate your participation with that. And with that, Commissioner Scar, I'll end my update and take any questions.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Bill Jablonski this morning? Okay, perfect. We will look forward to the winter meeting. That's always insightful and kind of helps us all prepare together. So looking forward to that. Okay, we will go ahead and move on to the Board of Commissioners, and I will call on Commissioner Fournier first this morning.
Hi, good morning. I don't have much. I was going to talk a little bit about some of the RVs, the abandoned RVs that we moved last week, but I'm sure that Sheriff Brown's going to touch upon that. I know that he was out with his deputies yesterday taking care of a known issue on Simpson property, which of course they would cover the removal cost of that, but the deputies are up there, and I believe he'll maybe talk a little bit about that, or at least in general. We are making a concerted effort to try to address those vehicles that are being dumped along the roadways, and so I just want people to know that you'll probably see some increased signage on pull-offs, especially on known problem roads like Miami Foley and Hobsonville Point Drive. You've seen these signs that are on Fraser Road. They're signs that basically limit your ability to use those pull-offs for 8 hours. And of course, no camping there and no dumping of vehicles. So we're going to be putting more signage out, which gives the deputies a tool to actually address the issue when it happens. I do ask the public if they see someone that is dumping one of these vehicles or RVs to call. Probably the non-emergency line for 911 would be the way to go, and report those so that we can hopefully respond as quickly as possible and identify those folks. So I'll let the sheriff talk more about that. I do appreciate Representative Javidy's review. I know a lot of folks don't agree with him supporting that transportation bill. I appreciate him communicating his take on it, and that he brought up the fact that he is introducing or proposing a new bill regarding law enforcement. I just would urge him, but over the weekend, I received calls from chiefs of police and other law enforcement officers that are concerned about the language of that. And the fact of the matter is that in Oregon, they are properly identified for almost all operations, except, as he noted, maybe an undercover situation or a SWAT situation. But so I'm happy to hear that he's open to discuss that with law enforcement, and I'm hoping that I know that he's listening to me, at least based on my 22 years in there. So hopefully at the end of the day, we'll find the solution that's appropriate. But I'm gonna end it there. I'll let Sheriff Brown talk more about I'm probably putting him on the spot. He's probably not prepared to. But anyways, that's all I got. I really came here to listen this morning. So thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will just, I know we've talked a bit about the transportation package. Thank again, Representative Javity, and you all have heard me talk about it here. I haven't had a chance to, since this past yesterday, to talk with our Public Works to get updated numbers on what the new package would mean for Tillamook County. But I just feel it's important to remind everyone that this is not an ODOT problem. It is a road system problem, and it includes counties and cities because our funding is tied to state funding. So you've heard me say that over and over again, but I will continue to do so just in case somebody new is listening and didn't get a chance to hear me say that before. So we will be I'll work with Chris Laity, particularly if the Senate does pass it, even if they don't, so that you can understand what was at stake for Tillamook County in this vote with the increase in the gas tax and the weight and mile tax and all the things that were reflected in that bill that as it sits there today. Because I think it's important to note that it's easy to have a strong opinion about a far off agency such as ODOT, because typically when I hear people talk about ODOT, they say, well, I don't mean our local people. Our local people that live and work in our community do a great job, right? And similarly, that is to ODOT's local people as it is to our county people. So if we believe in our local systems, then we need to fund them as well. So, well, more to come on that. But again, thank you for your vote, Representative, and for being here this morning to explain in detail. I think that what happens in Salem can seem very shrouded without that. So we just appreciate you being here. A couple other things I'll touch on quickly. Just as I always point out, the Housing Commission meeting is this week at 9 o'clock on Thursday morning. You can attend in person at the Port of Tillamook Bay in their boardroom, or you can go to the community development webpage and grab the online link and attend that way. But it's always interesting to see what our volunteer group of housing commissioners are doing to encourage and promote the development of housing in Tillamook County. So join us if you would like. Then I want to point out we have Ron Wyden coming to our community this Friday at 4:30. He will be at the Officers Mess Hall. As always, these are somewhat dependent upon the schedule at the federal government in the Senate and whether or not he might get called back for some reason. So I always encourage everyone to kind of check around locally right before you go and make sure it is still happening. But as of right now, we have Ron Wyden scheduled at 4:30. For anyone who's not been there, it's an opportunity to engage in a question and answer with our federally elected senator. You arrive and you get a ticket with a number, and they randomly pull tickets out of a bowl so that the chances of you getting to ask and have your question answered are as good as anyone else who gets there. It is good to get there early to get a good seat. I will say that these do tend to fill up, and I expect with all that is happening currently, there will definitely be a full house there. So it will begin at 4:30. So you may want to come a little early. And the last thing I will share is that next week I will not be on this call. I will be in Seaside next week. There is a rural infrastructure conference that is happening, and I am presenting on a couple of panels and looking forward to hearing the other panels. Much of this relates to development and housing development fairly specifically. So looking forward to being a part of that, and will, however, miss being with all of you next Tuesday. With that, I am going to circle back to the sheriff and see if we've given him enough time to finish his numbers, and we'll hear from the sheriff. Oh, Commissioner Fournier, I see you're unmuted. Did you have a comment?
Nope, just hit the button.
Okay, well, never mind then. Commissioner Fournier does not have a comment. Moving on to the sheriff. Thank you, Sheriff Brown.
I'm used to Commissioner Fournier trying to step in when it's my turn, so it's okay. No, I'm just teasing. We get along great. Yes, that is enough time, and I do appreciate that, Madam Chair. So I can get my stats here to you guys and kind of go over some things. My stats are kind of a little bit all over the place, but I'll kind of explain as we get going. So first, I want to talk about Labor Day weekend. I just generally want to mention that our total number of calls for service for this 4 days of like Friday through Monday of Memorial Weekend was 274 for those 4 days. Comparing that to last year's Memorial Weekend, it was 297. So we're actually down about 23 calls for service over the course of the whole weekend. So honestly, in the big scheme of things, that's pretty consistent, but it is down slightly. Just to kind of compare it to 4th of July weekend, which if anybody was out and about knows that it was chaos in Tillamook County, we had 447 calls for service. So not quite double, but quite a bit more calls for service during that 4th of July holiday weekend. So interesting to see the comparison between holiday weekends, in my opinion. But from there, what I did is I went ahead and calculated from Memorial Weekend to Labor Day weekend. So basically kind of encompassed the entire summer or the main bulk of the sheriff's office busy season, and ran some numbers for that. So first off, the total calls for service from Memorial Weekend to Labor Day weekend was 6,420. So I think that's about 4 months worth of time, about 3.5, I think. That is a pretty staggering number, if you ask me, 6,420 in that 3-month period, or slightly more than 3 months. Comparing that to last year, 2024, the same Memorial Weekend to Labor Day weekend, there was 6,099. So although our Labor Day weekend had a few less calls, our overall summer had about 300 calls for service more than the previous year. So a slight increase. And just some specific stats, we had 110 disturbance calls during that 3.5 month period. We had a total of 167 motor vehicle accidents. That number is pretty staggering as well, if you think about that just for that short amount of time. But we did respond to 167 crashes. Of course, OSP in Tillamook City has their own list, so that number is not exclusive to the entire county. There certainly was more, but the sheriff's office responded to that number. Recreational accidents, which have to do with ATVs like Sand Lake or Browns Camp, we had 24 of those, so that's a fairly low number. That's good to hear, in my opinion. Total number of arrests were 87. So we had 87 arrests. That's almost 30 a month. Just slightly less than 30 a month on average for that time period. Self-initiated activity, or what I like to call proactive policing, we had 391 business checks where we, late in the evening, go check a business, make sure they're secure, leave our card. That presence helps deter criminal activity. So we did 391 of those. The traffic stops that our deputies were able to do was 962 traffic stops in that Memorial Weekend to Labor Day weekend time frame. So that is a really good number, because that, when you see that, generally that keeps people slowed down a little bit and driving a little bit safer. So we try to make sure that we do that proactive policing as well. So those are the stats I have. It's fairly small and a little bit different than what I've normally done month to month. And once I finish my report, if anybody has questions about those, I can do my best to answer. Move on to just some other news. We had Deputy Fox graduate the academy very recently, so he's back and full on in the field training program. We're excited to get him back and get him trained up and eventually get him out on patrol by himself. We have another deputy on patrol that is just finishing up his field training program and should be looking at being on his own fairly soon. That's also great news. We have a third deputy that is graduating in September from the academy for patrol. So we'll be excited to get him back as well. We do have some people in background for all 3 divisions, which is exciting. We recently had a testing event that was kind of invite only for those who applied. We had good success with that. So we have a number of people that are in the background stage. So that again is exciting news. Hopefully we can continue to move forward on hiring and getting closer and closer to full staffing. So that's what I have on that. I do want to mention school is getting ready to start. Everybody please drive safe. Just know that buses and children will be driving around. We've asked our deputies to make sure that they patrol and run and work traffic in the areas of schools, both in the morning and the evening, just to help keep kids safe and keep people, from driving too fast in those areas. So just be aware of that and be cautious and watch for students and families getting their kids to and from school. Last thing I want to touch on, and actually Commissioner Fournier mentioned it, is the abandoned vehicles. We've been making a very concerted effort. It kind of got to crisis mode where the certain areas that are very highly prone to it started getting more and more and more vehicles on them. And so because it turned into kind of a crisis mode, we've been pushing very hard to work on getting these out of here. We also are on the back end are working on tracking down the last registered owner of the vehicle and making contact with them and issuing citations for abandoned vehicle. Of course, if a person has sold that vehicle and they have a bill of sale, we're able to track it to the next person. But per Oregon law, the last registered owner is responsible for vehicles that are abandoned. We're just trying to make sure that people understand that we don't want these abandoned vehicles. Not only are they an eyesore and they kind of hurt the beauty of our county, but the hurdles that we have to go through to remove those, being cost, DMV paperwork and fines, hours that our deputies and staff have to work on it, those are significant hurdles. And so that's why we want to make sure people get the message that we don't want to deal with these anymore. So we're going to take our steps that we need to do to curb that. And like I said, we're making, there is a lot of work on the back end, but we're balancing that and we're managing very well. But it is a significant issue. And so we're working very hard to deal with it. Also, as Commissioner Fournier said, I did come out yesterday afternoon. We're working on some occupied campers that are on private property, Stimson Lumber Company property. They actually have been taking steps to remove that and have found some private property to be able to move on to. So we're working on that because Stimson Lumber Company does have rights. And so we're trying to make sure that things like that are dealt with as well. We're trying to work all over the county and, get a lot of this resolved. But that is something that we are aggressively working on right now. And we're trying to make sure that the message is received that, don't just drop your vehicles because you're done with them and leave them to the taxpayers to pay for and deputies to deal with. So that's really what we're working on and what we're focusing on. I do want to say, give a big shout out or big thank you to the commissioner's office and specifically Commissioner Fournier, who's been working very closely with us to help with a lot of those hurdles and some of the procedural steps that we are dealing with. Also, a huge thank you to Chris Lady and all of his staff at Public Works. They've been instrumental in helping us get some of these vehicles out and take care of a lot of the problems. So like I said, that's been huge to help us out. It's been kind of a team effort. So thank you to them. And with that, that's my report. I can take any questions.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any questions for the sheriff?
I just wanted to, this is Commissioner Fournier, I just wanted to add to what the sheriff said and remind folks that if you sell, and people know I like to collect junk cars, but if you sell a car or an RV, be sure to get the name of the buyer and turn that into DMV, because like the sheriff said, the first course of action when we come across an abandoned vehicle is to go back to the last registered owner. And if you sold a car to somebody who doesn't have a license or suspended or can't afford the insurance, they won't re-register it. So it will be driving around in your name. And when it finally is dumped or towed and left in a tow yard, you will be responsible for the costs that were incurred removing that car. So I can't stress this enough. A lot of folks do have older RVs and they donate them or they just give them away because they're not worth much, but they end up on the side of the roads. And just so you know, if you're the last registered owner, you either have it registered with the state that you sold it, notify the state DMV, or keep records of who you sold to. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I think that the other thing I would point out is Commissioner Fournier has been, and maybe he wants to say a little bit more, looking at there was a bill in front of the legislature last session that would have added a fee to the purchase of an RV that would have helped counties like ours pay for the removal and destruction of these RVs. That bill did not pass. As a result, the county is going to find itself warehousing many of these due to lack of funding for actually being able to tear them apart and get rid of them in some cases. Do you want to say anything more, Commissioner Fournier, about the bill and or about, just the cost and our looking at what we can do going forward?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to mention that. That's another thing. I did speak with Representative Javadi about that bill, and he did express some interest in let's bringing that back and tweaking it. Maybe it was, I think part of the reason the bill failed was it wasn't articulated enough just what the impact is for small cities and counties that have to deal with these things. And it's thousands of dollars when all said and done for each one. And then if they have to be tested for asbestos. I've seen comments online where people said, well, you don't need to test newer trailers. Well, you do, because asbestos is still legal to be put into these RVs. So each one of these RVs that the sheriff is towing, he is warehousing. We're paying rent at the port property, so it's costing the county money to warehouse these, and then we have to pay an inspector to come in and inspect each one of them and then send off samples to a lab to get tested. And all this is required by DEQ, another state agency that's making us do something but not providing any funding. So a bill, we need to fix that. And so luckily, I think we'll see something. Maybe not, it won't be in the short session, but definitely in a long session to help us fund this so that it's not just falling on our local back. So thank you for bringing that up.
No, thank you. And thank you for the research you've done and the work you've done on this. It is an issue that I know is important to a lot of people. None of us like to see them on our roadways, and they do create safety hazards. And we would all like if it just didn't happen. But as so many things that fall to government, it's going to happen. And so there is a response required, and response requires funding. So looking at the full life cycle, this is really important. And Commissioner Fournier has taken that on, and we appreciate it. So thank you, along with partnership with the Sheriff's Office and Public Works. So more to come, I'm sure. Okay, let's jump into our cities. I believe that I have the city of Manzanita with us today, and I'm seeing Mayor Kozlowski, I believe, or Councilwoman. Help me. Councilwoman Kozlowski today. Okay, there she goes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, thank you. Sometimes I get confused on this, so I really appreciate that. So the report from Manzanita is going to be pretty short this morning, but I did want to take a moment to add my thanks for the good work and the presentation on the transportation bill by Representative Javadi. It's just critical for our coastal communities, and we also deeply appreciate the consistent support of Commissioner Scar in this area. It's really important to see the leadership we have here, and I'm very proud and impressed of our leadership. Labor Day in Manzanita was pretty peaceful. Lots of people here enjoying the wonders of the coast, pretty energetic, which we really appreciate and love. City Hall is up and running. It's funny, it seems like it's been there forever, only it's been open for a month. To the credit of our city manager, it came in on time and under budget, and we could not be happier. We are continuing to work on our middle housing ordinance. It does look like we're getting close. The major issues have been bringing the public up to speed, incorporating their input, and carefully moving forward. So it's taken us a little longer than we expected, but I fully believe that the end result will be worth the time. Lastly, in 2005, we instituted a leash law for dogs. Manzanita is a dog-friendly city, and we have lots of dogs here. At this next council meeting, we hopefully will designate specific areas within the city as off-leash areas for the dogs. The first place we're looking at doing that is Underhill Plaza, which is right adjacent to the City Hall. So it should make a very friendly and inviting area for people to come. So that's my report for this morning. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity for sharing the information about Manzanita. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it, Linda. Okay, we will move on to Rockaway Beach and Mayor McNeely.
Good morning, Tillamook County. Can you hear me now?
Good morning, we can.
All right. After 2 years of production, our ladder truck arrived in Rockaway Beach. This new apparatus fills a critical gap and is highly valued by our personnel who greatly appreciate the community's commitment to providing this vital resource. Over the next month, the department will focus on training and equipping the ladder truck and will host a push-in ceremony at the fire department Saturday, September 27th at 11 a.m. with food and fun and an opportunity to be part of the commissioning ceremony for our new ladder truck. The annual financial audit for fiscal year 2024-2025 commenced with a 3-day visit from Kuntz, Velasquez and Associates. During this visit, the auditors worked closely with Finance Director Johnston and her team to collect and review the city's financial records from the past year. The exit meeting on Wednesday proceeded smoothly, and preliminary results suggest another year of positive financial performance for the city of Rockaway Beach. I do want to have a shout out to Finance Director Johnston and her team for their diligence and ongoing commitment to supporting the city's success and continuous improvement. On to Public Works. Public Works welcome new seasonal staff, Dante Diaz. Dante will assist Rob Burley with upkeep of public spaces during peak season. He is also serving as a Rockaway Beach volunteer firefighter. Continuing with Public Works, they held its monthly safety committee meeting and conducted quarterly inspections. CPR training is scheduled for all Public Works staff and registration is already full. And then for those driving through Rockaway Beach, you'll see some work on the west side of 101 across from El Trio Loco. We're doing some excavation and conduit replacement, and so there'll be a lot of activity there over the next few days, maybe weeks. And then finally, I'll add my thanks to Representative Javity for his efforts on behalf of Tillamook County. With that, back to you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, continuing down our list, it looks like Bay City Mayor Leanne Welch is next.
And good morning. So shout out and thank you to Tillamook County Sheriff's Office, Public Works, and Solid Waste. So we did have 2 of those abandoned RVs on Hobson Road Point just outside the city limits that have been removed. And there was also a dump of just trash up Pennsylvania Avenue, which leads up into our forest. And so they cleaned that up and had evidence of names from the garbage that they are also investigating. So that's huge. So thank you. I'd also like to give an update on our $2.5 million grant from the Oregon State Fire Marshal for seismic upgrades to Bay City's fire station number 41. The design is underway. They've done the geotechnical work. And so we will be having a seismically safe fire department here probably next year. And that is my report for today. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to City of Tillamook, City Manager Sean Lewis. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Commissioner. We wanted to echo the sheriff's call for safe driving this week. All of our schools start this week. The kids are going back. It's a wonderful time of year, but always we need to be mindful of the bus stops and the kids crossing streets and such going around there. Our normal city council meeting that should have been last night on a Monday night was moved to tonight due to the holiday. as is our tradition here in Tillamook. Tonight's city council meeting, work session beginning at 6 o'clock and regular session at 7 o'clock. There's some important items on our agenda. We will be discussing the water rates, and we'll have some data on what our police force does every day, and looking at statistics over the past 3 years for our police department. So that's giving that council that important update. We still have our Ward 2 City Council spot open. Applications are due this Friday, or pardon me, this Thursday. So please get your application in quickly if you're interested in that spot. You must live within the boundaries of Ward 2 and have been a registered voter for a year to qualify for that position. And then we still have our open utility clerk spot that we're excited to get filled. That's my report, Commissioner. Thank you so much for letting us be on the call today.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. Okay, we have arrived at the end of our agenda at 9 a.m. sharp. I just want to thank everyone for being here with us today. Those who are speaking and those who are attending, I want to thank KTIL for broadcasting, and we will adjourn at 9 a.m. Thank you.